Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here with another episode of Eat This Game, and I am here today with the amazing, wonderful Barclay. Barclay, why don't you take a sec, introduce yourself, and tell us about your game?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Barclay. My friends are he, it. I am a game designer and games podcaster, and I also do art for some tabletop games and actual play things. Um, the game that I'm here to talk about today is Begin Again, which is this where I do my little elevator pitch?
Yes, yeah. This tell us a little bit about Begin
Cool. Yeah.
Again.
Um, yeah. Begin Again is a belonging outside belonging game where you play as college students who are on like the cusp of graduating, who get stuck in a time loop because they are afraid of the future and what comes next. It's more of a emotionally driven game than anything else. It's very much about figuring out what you need in the world and how you can move on in a way that feels good to you.
I'd love to take a second just for you to talk about your inspirations behind the game, because it feels like a deeply personal game to you, and I know you've talked about there are some inspirations from your college experience and your like hometown experience. So I'd love for you to delve into that a little bit.
Yeah, it is definitely a deeply personal game. It started as like a completely different concept as many artistic projects do, where originally it was sort of about
Many such cases, yeah.
like soulmates finding each other over multiple soulmates finding each other over multiple like worlds and timelines, and it's kind of about finding your people, and that part of it has kind of remained a through line, because it is very much about the community that you build when you're in college, or in this period of like coming of age in general. So it definitely it started a couple years ago as that first concept, and then last May I graduated undergrad, and I was writing it while I was going through that like senior year of college thing. So it sort of transformed into this completely other thing because I needed some sort of outlet to get those emotions out. And was thinking a lot about like how my struggles with like the administration at my college and many people's struggles with the administration at my college felt like we were in this constant loop of frustration and trying to make things change that weren't changing, which is kind of where the time loop came into it. And then there's just so many little bits and pieces of people I know, people that I grew up with. There are like multiple direct descriptions of people that I know in here, whether they be from my past 4 or 5 years of college and post grad, or when I was like a child, like teachers I had in elementary school, stuff like that. It's a real hodgepodge of my entire life and everyone that I have loved and that has loved me, I think.
Yeah, a real who's who of who Barclay knows.
Exactly.
I'd love to know kind of where you started to touch on it. Like, where did the idea of the time loop itself come in? Because I feel like in tabletop games, especially, it's hard to do that kind of time loop concept because of just like the meta knowledge that comes with playing a TTRPG.
Yeah.
I would love to know how where that idea came from, and how you kind of deal with that aspect of the time loop.
Yeah, it definitely. So where it came from was the base of where it comes from is just that I love time loops in media. I'm a sucker for them, and I really love when they represent sort of a constant fight for something better. There's an element of hope in a time loop story that I really like and that is very compelling to me. I think as I was writing it, the most recent time loop game or piece of media that I had really been sinking my teeth into was a game called In Stars and Time, which is very much about is very connected to the themes of this game, very much figuring out who you are and getting stuck in one moment because you're afraid of what comes next and what's going to come after this. That game is about a group of adventurers, and the protagonist is the one who kind of has nowhere to return to after the adventure's over. So it's very much about them kind of figuring out where they're going to fit into the world after this adventure's over, which I think is very cool and very compelling to me. I also really love Hadestown and was thinking a lot about Hadestown at the time that I was writing this, which is, again, a very much a we tell the story again and again because maybe something different will happen this time, and maybe something will change, and this revolution will really put something forward in a very concrete way. So yeah, there was like a kind of a middle ground in between the original concept and this final version that was sort of more focused on young revolutionaries, and it also is kind of why I landed on college students, is because it's so much like ground floor protesting and like mutual aid and stuff is happening with young people. And in college towns, and especially I went to college in New Paltz, and there was a lot of very good like boots on the ground stuff happening in New Paltz that was very encouraging to be around and to see happening. So yeah, that's all of those things kind of tied together, and then how that manifested as a mechanic in this game was sort of, first of all, me accepting that it meant that this game was not meant to ever be like a one-shot or short campaign game. It's sort of a, like, you kind of have to be in it for the long haul, which is also a hard sell for people, I know. But it's, I keep saying to people, by nature of it being a time loop, it's not really a one-shot game. So the sort of overall, I have my copy of it in front of me so that I don't just start talking and say crazy things. But there is a get my thoughts in order. There is no like mechanical win condition to it, which also makes it difficult as a time loop game sometimes, but is also why I pitch people on the concept of really deciding when you think your character has won and is ready to move on, quote unquote won. And the meta level of that is that there is one specific move that is a strong move for those who are familiar with Belonging Outside Belonging, which is you have to spend a token to use that move. That is remember something useful from a past loop, and that is intentionally designed to sort of take some pressure off of you, the player, having to remember exactly what happened every time, or having to like take meticulous notes about things, because it isn't meant to be used actually every time you remember something. It is more meant to be used when you either don't remember what has happened as a player, or when you are like, oh, I should have taken note of this thing or asked a question about it while it was happening, and then you sort of get to use this move and decide something that you have noticed in the past, so that you can now use it as useful information this time around. Because it is a time loop game, but it is also GM-less, I was trying to sort of make it as easy as possible for people to play through the loop without getting too bogged down in the details of being exact about exactly what words were said every time and things like that.
Definitely, yeah. Is it, do you like have to play kind of like, I guess, sequentially of like you play the first loop, then the second loop, then the third loop, or can it be like you play the first loop and then you skip ahead, like, oh, we've been through this a few times, or like, or is that kind of up to whoever?
It's, I think, up to players' discretion. I think in my mind, intended it as like you are playing every loop. Because there was also a period of time where I eventually took this out because I was trying to make it, again, a lighter experience in terms of keeping track of details. But I did originally have some sort of mechanic that was like, this is your like reset button. Because in a lot of time loop things, it's like, okay, here's how I messed this one up bad. I gotta go back to the start and fix this one. so I originally had something of that nature, but I think it does come down to how you want to play it, and especially again because I intended it not as a like you are trying to you are trying to have the optimal playthrough of your day.
Yeah.
It's slightly less necessary for there to be a mechanical like this is how you win, this is how you reset the loop, whatever. I could definitely see myself playing it and being like, hey, let's maybe skip a loop or two, just to be like, okay, we're you know, living this thing over and over. But the game kind of also incentivizes you to play through them. One of the because there is that remember something useful from a past loop mechanic, but also because the way that you keep track of how much time has passed within your one loop within your day is that it's broken into 3 sections, which is the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. And you create a clock of a certain amount of sections that ticks throughout that section of the day. And when the clock is full and you are moving on to the next section of your day, say morning to afternoon, you decide on 1 or 2 novel events, new things that will happen because of something that you did differently in that section of the day. So the example that I like to give is if you were supposed to go to a class in the morning and you skipped that class this loop, in the afternoon, that professor might send you an email or reach out to you in some way to be like, hey, either you're in trouble or are you okay? What's going on? Some sort of thing that is different. So that there is a compelling
reason
to play through the day and say, yes, you're creating your own little domino effect that you then get to say, okay, here's what that has done for me. So it makes it a little more interesting to play through each day when you have a reason to say, okay, let's see what messes I can get into this time.
Totally, yeah. I'd also love to touch on, I do feel like, you know, there is all like just an underlying queerness, I think, in the game for sure. Just I think that idea of like the coming of age, the kind of figuring yourself out. I mean, it's an experience everyone has, but it is such a like, you know, something that I think a lot of queer people experience. Was that something that you intentionally drew upon, like your own queer experiences as inspiration, or was it kind of just like it just happened to, you know, fall into place like that?
I mean, a little bit of both. Everything that I make has an inherent queerness to it, just by virtue of me being a queer person, and also like belonging outside belonging games kind of have a inherent queerness to them a lot of the time, also. But it also definitely was a thing of, the first time that I actually started fully socially transitioning was when I went away to college. And so throughout the past 4 or 5 years, I've had this experience of like, my core like gender identity I don't think has changed at all. But how I express it and the different levels of comfort I have with certain things, and also like just it being the first time that I was around a lot of queer people at the same time. I went to a very queer school, and like my senior year I lived with 2 other trans masc people, and it was a very cool and affirming and like lovely experience to just live with people who understood who I was on that fundamental level. And so it very much came from that sort of queer community that I formed there, especially being a theater student at this very queer school. It didn't feel it didn't feel like it would be, let me figure out what I'm trying to say. There was never a point where I was like, I'm intentionally including queerness in this game, because it was like just it would not be an accurate representation of my college experience, and also of a lot of people my age, if there were no queer people in a college game. In 2026, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But also I think that there's especially when you're telling a story about finding yourself, even if you decided for some reason to play a cis het character in Begin Again, there's a queerness to that kind of storyline when you're exploring it in this fashion. And I think also putting it in that like contained time loop setting gives you the chance to sort of explore things for that character that are a little more drastic than what they normally would do.
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog just came in here. Hi. Because it reminds me sort of when in like 2020, when we were all sort of quarantined, a lot of people started experimenting more with their gender because they weren't so worried about what other people were going to think and what the consequences of that would be. So putting it in this very contained setting is like, what would change about how you presented yourself to the world if you knew that it wouldn't stick with them tomorrow? You know?
No, totally. That's definitely, I think, something that, like, you know, a lot of queer people growing up probably had the thought of, like, oh, I wish I could just, like, come out to someone, see their reaction, and immediately erase their memory just to see, you know, just kind of erase that fear. Like, at least I know I definitely had that thought, for sure.
For sure.
I'd love to touch on kind of the production, I guess, aspect of it. I'd love for you to shout out kind of the people you worked with to make this game a reality, like your editors and illustrators and stuff.
Yeah. I am really, really grateful for the experience that I had publishing this. It was published by Plus One EXP through their Zine Club program. I have never had other people work on a game that I wrote before. I've always done like my own art and layout stuff for them, so this was the first time that I was working with other people and trying to sort of articulate that to other people, and Plus One is very good at helping someone through that, I think, because I had a baseline for art direction stuff. My illustrator was Annika Hamill, who is incredible, a friend of mine for a long time, whose art I have always adored, and was like, I actually think that it would be really, really great to have you work on this, and they were like, oh my god, yes, let's do it, which it was incredible. They did all of the playbook art, which is also on the cover, and I think they did such an incredible job putting together what I gave them, which was, art direction wise, a document full of like, here are pictures of my real life friends from college that inspired some of these playbooks and their vibe, and here's a little thing about them, and then also like, here's just sort of the general vibe of the game, and they did an incredible job with it. I recently did an event for this game in New Paltz, at the board game cafe there. Shout out to Gunks Gaming Guild and New Paltz. And a bunch of my college friends came to it, including one of them who looks exactly like one of the playbook art like pieces, and everyone was like, and I was like, yeah, that is intentional. So it was really, really cool to see my friends be like, oh my god, I feel very seen in this, and also I've gotten multiple people being like, I really appreciate how much representation is within the playbook art, which was another thing that was very important to me. So Annika did an incredible job with that, and then the layout part of it was where I really was like, I have no idea what I want, because I have always done my own layout for things in a very simple way. I don't know a lot about layout, so Tony from Plus One was like, hey, what are you thinking for layout? And I went, I don't know. What do you need from me? And so I put together like a silly little Google slideshow of, here's games that I like, how they look, and why I think it might work for this. And then Johnny, who works for Plus One, who did the layout, put all of it together into a thing that I could never have actually imagined. I was like, oh my god, this is so exactly beautiful and perfect. And yeah, it was really, really so welcoming, and patient with me as someone who had never been published before, and also who had never worked on really anything else that had been published, except for I did illustration for Luke Jordan's Heaven in the Dust, which was another Zine Club release, and another inspiration point for the game, and so I was kind of seeing how Luke handled it, who also like is someone who had published games before. So I was like, okay, I'm taking notes, and I'm going, how can I do it like that? So yeah, really, really great. Luke also did consulting game design on this, which was very, very helpful. I think that Luke is truly one of my favorite game designers and has such a way with words and such a way with like particular game design mechanics, and really just like brought this to a level that I simply could not have achieved on my own. So I am incredibly grateful for Luke's help on that, and also just like friendship in general. Luke's awesome.
I love the fact that like this is a game about, or that has a lot of aspects of like community and friendship and like working together, and like that is kind of also how the game was built. It seems like was like you had had a village of people who helped you bring it to life, and I think you can definitely tell you can tell it's such a labor of love. All the character art is great. It feels so like it somehow feels relevant and timeless at the same time. Like it it doesn't evoke like a specific era, but it feels like it could fit in anywhere. And the design with like the little like subtleties in the background on all of the pages and stuff is so cool. I was literally like I was flipping through it a little bit like just before it. I'm just like, this is so cool. Just like the black and white of it all. Was that an intentional choice on your part to do black and white?
Yeah, the black and white thing was it's an interesting choice that I ended up making, because I still don't know that I really have like a reason for it other than I really like the aesthetic look of black and white and grayscale stuff. So that sort of just seeped in there by virtue of me liking it. But also like when I gave the little like layout pitch deck that I made to them, I put in the image that I had been using as the like cover of the manuscript version of it in my Google Docs or whatever, and it was just sort of like a blurry high contrast black and white photo, and I was like, this is sort of the vibe that's in my brain. And so that sort of seeped in that way. And then when we were doing when Annika and I were talking about the art, I originally was like, just do outlines, like don't even do like a grayscale coloring or anything, or like flats, whatever. Which originally was because a lot of the art direction inspiration was from Sleepaway by Jay Dragon. And that's very much what the playbook art in that game is like, and I really liked the simplicity of it. But then we were like, let's try maybe flat, like grays. But I never put together any color palette or anything. It was always just like, I don't know, I think it's just black and white. And that has ended up being a really fun thing, because something that I got to observe this past weekend when I was playing the game with friends of mine was the playbook art being grayscale. Means that when people I brought like a bunch of colored pens, because that's just what I happen to write with a lot of the time. People were taking these colored pens and like doing little doodles on their grayscale or like coloring it in. And I was like, oh, I love that. I love this like accidental thing that I've done here, or that Annika and I have done here, which is give people the room to like really personalize it and add the color where they want it. And I think that's so cool that sort of was a unforeseen thing that happened, not intentional. So yeah, it was just sort of a like, what am I thinking? It was sort of a black and white constraining the color palette to black and white meant that other people could sort of put their own projection onto it more than if we had given it like a specific feel, I think. Because I guess it gives
it feels like it's more inviting for the player to kind of step in and color in the things and color in the characters themselves, and it kind of it gives almost like I feel like this was also very intentional, but like a comic strip vibe, like the character design and the black and white of it all, which I think is it's just endearing, I think.
Yeah, I really, really am very happy with how what it added to the game. I also think that the black and white was sort of a nod to the time loop of it all, and how you would get kind of numb to the world if you were in that situation. I have sort of like, I don't market it this way because I don't like calling things this, but it is sort of by virtue of just like the time loop and the community of it all, kind of accidentally a cozy horror game, because I never went into it being like, I'm gonna write a horror game, but by being a time loop, it's kind of an existential horror game. But I was more like, I want it to be about the community, so it sort of accidentally became that. And so I think that the black and white also kind of helps push it in that more like uncanny direction, because it was never something that I really went for in like the writing or the character art. So I think that having that in the layout of it and the like blurry, grainy background photos, it sort of adds to that disconnect between your character and the world.
Totally, yeah. During this whole development process, publishing process, was there something that you learned either about the game design process or even about yourself that like you've like really internalized and like you're gonna keep moving forward? Like, is there any lesson that you got from this process?
I need to give myself more time to playtest things is a big one. I did not have enough playtest time on this game, just because it took me, I was writing it like right up to the like, you need to lock the text. And even like after it locked, I was like, oh, there are things that I wish I could go back and be like, oh, let me put this in there. And so yeah, I think I need to be more okay with getting a rougher first version together so that I can play test it and refine it that way, rather than just trying to like write it and then be like, this was probably good for playing. So that's a big one.
No, definitely. Having the levels of, you know, the game, having your super, super rough draft that's like barely a game and like has no correct grammar in it, I think it's important to play test at that level for sure. Because that like really shapes
I'm really
everything
bad
so
about
much.
Things like that. I'm really bad about things like
well,
that.
Now you have so much, like, you know, for the future, for the next one.
Now I know. And also, I think that the biggest thing that I learned in designing this game was like being okay with changing my mind about things. Because similarly to what I was just saying, is I want to get it right the first time. I have so much trouble going back and being like, actually, this was wrong. This was nothing, actually. Which happens so much with this game. It took me like 2 years to actually write this game, and it's not that long of a game. Just because it started out as this completely different thing. It started out as something that I wanted to be this like completely other, like you are actively having this like mechanic that is changing each loop, and you are getting closer to doing it perfectly. And I eventually went, I don't really think it's about any of that. I don't think it's about that concrete of a thing. I think it's more about figuring out what feels good for you. And so yeah, like letting the reins loose a little bit more on myself, maybe, is the
that's something I've learned.
The lesson.
Something I've learned just over the years is that a lot of times, if you listen, the game will tell you what it wants to be, and like trying to force it to be something else, like it's not gonna come out as good as if you kind of let the flow go. So for people who are playing this game, gonna play this game, what do you want people to take away from playing Begin Again? Like, what do you want their emotional narrative experience to feel like? Even if there's not one specific thing, like it's just a vibe.
One of the things that was really cool this past weekend when I got to play it with a lot of friends was I was playing it with a lot of people who had never really played a tabletop game before, or a tabletop role-playing game specifically before. And I think this is a hard sell for a first one, but it was really cool to watch. And one of my friends said this to me explicitly in these words, was like, it's really cool to be able to be vulnerable with each other through the guise of a character. It's really cool to be like, I can sort of explore these things that I might not be ready to talk about with these people as myself, but I can explore these sort of themes and these things that I'm struggling with, or that I have struggled with in the past, through this character, to sort of connect with people. And I think that's the number one thing, is sort of being able to explore something in yourself, or even something that you know other people struggle with, like having a sort of empathetic response to it, and being able to connect with the people that you're around the table with, is sort of number one.
That. The final question I have to ask, it's the same question I ask everyone who comes on to eat this game, and that is, if you took a bite out of Begin Again, what would it taste like? What's the mouthfeel? What's the culinary experience you're going through?
It's the mouthfeel. I was thinking, you warned me about this question, which I appreciated.
I have to warn
and
people
then
about
I
this question.
proceeded to not think about it for like a week, and then this morning I went, what is it? And the first thing that popped into my brain was like the little brown sugar tapioca bubbles.
Ooh.
Was like it's sort of soft but also a little bit tough, and it's sweeter than you think it's gonna be sometimes.
The soft chewy
and
center.
It's a little like slimy and weird. it's a little, because that's for me personally, I didn't think I was gonna like that the experience of like a tapioca boba drink when I first tried it however long ago, because I am very particular about textures and things, and then I tried it and I was like, I really love this, and I think that's kind of the vibe. I think that's the vibe, is sort of what am I saying? I think that's the vibe. I think it's tapioca bubbles is sort of the vibe.
Okay, cool. I will internalize that and think about that.
Mull that one over.
I think with all that being said, just file that away for later. With all that being said, I think I have a few ideas, and I am gonna head to the kitchen.
Yay.
And that's where I'll have a hey, it's me, voiceover Dan, here to tell you all about the recipe I came up with for Begin Again. I took inspiration from like the swirly nature of a time loop, and also the beginnings of Begin Again being in upstate New York. So I came up with apple butter cinnamon rolls. To start, I'm gonna mix together some warm milk, sugar, and yeast. I'm going to let that sit at room temperature for about 5 minutes until the yeast gets all nice and bubbly. Next, I'm going to add in some flour. I'm using gluten-free flour, but you can use regular flour. It'll come out just the same, don't you worry. Then I'm going to add some more sugar, some cinnamon, and some salt. And I'm going to mix that all together until super well combined. Then I'm going to add in some super duper soft butter. Then I'm going to add in 1 egg, and I'm going to mix it all together until a shaggy dough has formed. Once it's mixed to my liking, I'm just going to take a towel, cover it, and let sit for about 20 minutes. Once that time is up, I'm gonna lightly flour my surface and knead out our dough until a smooth ball forms. Once it's kneaded to my liking, I'm just going to cover it and let sit for 30 to 40 minutes or until it's doubled in size. While we're waiting for our dough to rise, I'm going to make our filling. And it's just going to be a mixture of some super duper softened butter, brown sugar, vanilla, cinnamon, and apple butter. I made my own apple butter, but you can totally use store-bought. Just know that I am better than you because I made my own apple butter and you didn't. And then I'm going to mix it all together until nice and combined. Once the dough has risen enough, I'm going to lightly flour my surface and knead out our dough just one more time. Then, with my trusty flour-dusted rolling pin, I'm going to roll out the dough until it's about 3/4 of an inch thick, ensuring that I'm squaring off all the sides. And I'm going to continuously rotate the dough to ensure it doesn't stick and to make sure that I'm rolling it out evenly. Once I've deemed that it's been rolled out enough, I'm going to take that super delicious filling that we just made and plop it right onto our dough. Then I'm going to take a spatula and spread it out into one even layer across the whole dang thing. As a finishing touch, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit more brown sugar right on top of our filling. You can also, if you want, add in chopped nuts or chocolate chips or anything like that. You just want to make sure that the pieces are small enough that they don't puncture the dough when we roll it up. Speaking of, it's time to roll up the dough. I'm going to carefully lift up one of the edges, pinch it down, and roll it lengthwise. And there's the big question of, should you roll it lengthwise, should you roll it widthwise, or whatever have you, hot dog style, hamburger style, whatever. I like doing it this way because while we don't get as many cinnamon rolls, they are thicker, and I love a thick cinnamon roll. Don't even get me started. Oh, I've been started. Don't even get. I need to. Hold on. I need to go. I'll be right back. Once we are all rolled up, I'm just going to take my trusty serrated knife and cut off the kind of ugly bits on the end, and then cut our cinnamon rolls in about 2-inch sections. I mark it off first just to measure it by eye, and then I go in and cut them through. There's all the tricks about using dental floss or other like weird things. I'm fine just using a serrated knife. I don't think it's that serious. It's fine. We're all fine. We're adults here. Now that we're all sliced up, I'm going to take our cinnamon rolls and put them in our baking dish. I'm going to arrange them with a little bit of space between them, and I'm just going to flatten them with the palm of my hand, still leaving just a little bit of space because as they rise and as they bake, they'll take up that space. Once they are arranged as I want in our baking dish, I'm just going to cover it and let sit and let them raise for about 20 minutes. While they're rising, I am going to preheat our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and then make our topping. For the topping, we're just going classic and simple cream cheese. So I have a block of some super soft cream cheese, and I'm just gonna mix it with some powdered sugar. I'm also gonna add just a splash of milk and then put it in our fridge to set up just a little bit. Just before we put our cinnamon rolls in the oven, I'm just going to brush the tops of them with a little bit of milk and then bake them at 375 degrees until golden brown. Takes about 40 minutes, but for you just gotta wait. 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! Now, while I sensually pour this glaze all over these cinnamon rolls, Barclay, why don't you tell people where they can find Begin Again?
I've been Barclay Travis. You can find me anywhere you need to find me at Barks Travis, which is BARCSTRAVIS. You can find the digital version of Begin Again on my itch page, which is also Barks Travis. You can get the nice print physical edition on Plus One EXP's storefront. And if you want to hear me talk about games that are not mine, you can listen to me do that on Tabletop Book Club, a podcast I do once a month with my friend B. Alexander, where we talk about usually other indie games and why we like them so much. And that's me.
I would like to once again thank Barclay Travis for coming on and talking about his game Begin Again. Make sure you check it out. All the links for it will be in the description down below. And I'd like to thank you for watching Eat This Game and supporting indie games altogether. As always, I have been Dan the Baker. This has been Tiny Ghost Chef Games. And I hope you enjoyed today's haunting. Bye-bye.